You spend 30 years building something, a family, a business, a life, brick by painstaking brick, laying each course with sweat and hope, believing in the integrity of the structure. You pour everything you have into the foundation, checking the level constantly, making sure it's true, solid, built to withstand whatever life throws at it. You think it's strong. Then one day, on what should be the proudest, sunniest pinnacle of your life, the person who was supposed to be your partner, the one holding the other end of the level all those years, the one you trusted to guard the blueprints, calmly reveals, she's been systematically planting dynamite charges in the basement, fuse already lit, ready to blow the whole damn structure sky high, while she walks away with the insurance money and maybe the deed to the land underneath. My name is Bill Henderson. I'm 55 years old, and for the better part of my adult life, the grit of sawdust and the satisfying heft of a framing hammer have been more familiar to my hands than anything else. I own and operate Henderson & Sons Construction right here in Marietta, Georgia. The name's a bit of hopeful legacy from my old man, really. It's mostly just me, my indispensable right-hand man, Frank Rossi, who's forgotten more about building than most guys ever learn, and a couple of damn good, reliable crews. We're not the biggest outfit in Cobb County, but we're known for quality. Custom homes that stand the test of time, meticulous renovations on historic properties, additions that blend seamlessly, work that requires patience, skill, and an unwavering commitment to doing things the right way. It's demanding work, physically and mentally. It consumed me, demanded long hours, weekends, left me perpetually smelling faintly of lumber and caulk. It also, I see now with blinding, painful clarity, made me neglect the slow, insidious rot happening right under my own roof. That consumption, that relentless focus on providing, on building, was supposed to be for them, for my wife, Susan, and our daughter, Emily, to give them the comfortable life, the security I hadn't always had growing up, to ensure Emily could chase her dreams without the crushing weight of student debt. And chase them she did. Which brings me to that sweltering May afternoon at Kennesaw State University's graduation ceremony, the air thick with humidity and the scent of newly cut grass. Emily, my brilliant, funny, artistic Emily, graduating magna cum laude with a degree in graphic design. Seeing her name called, watching her stride across that stage with confidence, clutching that diploma like a trophy. It was a moment 30 years in the making. Every splinter, every strained muscle, every sleepless night worrying about payroll or weather delays, it all felt validated, washed away in that single, overwhelming wave of pure, unadulterated paternal pride. This was it. This was the peak, the culmination, the reason for all the sacrifice. Or it should have been. But the joy felt fragile, constantly undercut by the palpable chill emanating from the woman sitting beside me, Susan, my wife of 27 years. She went through the motions, the polite applause, the tight-lipped smile for the family photos, the requisite hug for Emily. But it was a performance, thin as tracing paper. Her eyes, usually a warm blue, seemed flat, distant, holding a steely resolve I hadn't seen before, or maybe hadn't wanted to see. The invisible wall between us, the one that had been quietly, almost imperceptibly rising over the past year, felt miles high and ice cold that day. The warning signs, looking back, were blinking like neon billboards I'd somehow driven past with my eyes closed. Her growing obsession with expensive wellness retreats and joining a new exclusive gym. The wardrobe transformation from comfortable suburban mom to sharply dressed executive wannabe, complete with designer handbags I knew we couldn't comfortably afford. The sudden insistence on financial independence, leading her to meet frequently with a new financial advisor, Greg Pritchard, a slick character I met once and instantly disliked. Her increasing complaints about feeling stifled by our predictable life in Marietta, Her phone, once casually left on the counter, now guarded like Fort Knox, always screened down, often taken into the bathroom or out to the patio for hushed conversations punctuated by forced laughter. The dismissive way she'd started talking about my business. "Still messing around with those dusty old houses, Bill?" As if the very work that funded her increasingly expensive lifestyle was somehow beneath her. I'd tried to rationalize it. Midlife crisis? Empty nest syndrome now that Emily was graduating? Stress? I'd even tentatively suggested counseling, an idea she'd scoffed at. "We don't need counseling, Bill. I just need more." More what? She never specified. I was too busy juggling 3 major projects, too tired at the end of the day, too rooted in the naive belief that 27 years meant something, meant loyalty, meant weathering storms together. Then came the discovery that shattered my willful ignorance. About 3 weeks before graduation, I was searching for an old warranty document in the shared desk drawer in our messy home office. My fingers brushed against a plain manila folder tucked way in the back, underneath tax returns from 5 years ago. It wasn't labeled with my handwriting. Curiosity, or maybe a subconscious alarm finally piercing through, made me pull it out. The label simply read, "Personal Finances, G. Pritchard." My blood ran cold even before I opened it. Pritchard was the financial advisor. Why was his folder hidden here? Inside wasn't just investment brochures, it was printouts of emails. Long, detailed email chains between Susan and Greg Pritchard. My eyes scanned the lines, the words blurring, then snapping into horrifying focus. They weren't just discussing her small inheritance. They were discussing my business. Henderson and Sons. Detailed discussions about our client base, upcoming high-value contracts Frank and I were bidding on, even speculation about the business's valuation in a hypothetical divorce scenario. Pritchard was advising her on how to position herself to claim a significant portion, suggesting tactics like arguing her minimal past administrative help somehow constituted a major contribution to its current value. Worse, much worse, were the emails outlining a transition strategy. Talk of maximizing leverage, timing the notification for optimal impact, and post-separation asset allocation. One email from Susan, timestamped just 2 weeks prior, read, "Greg, confirmed Emily's graduation is May 15th. That still feels like the right time. He'll be emotional, less likely to react rationally. Gives us the window we need to implement the financial protection measures you outlined before he realizes what's happening. Let's finalize the account transfer instructions next week." Another email from Pritchard referenced setting up new corporate entities, obscure trust, jargon I barely understood, but whose intent felt chillingly clear. To siphon funds or value away from Henderson and Sons before or during a divorce. It wasn't just infidelity, though the intimate, conspiratorial tone of the emails strongly suggested Pritchard was far more than just an advisor. It was a meticulously planned financial assassination attempt. She wasn't just leaving me. She was plotting to destroy my life's work, the very engine that had fueled her comfortable existence, on her way out the door. The betrayal felt absolute, staggering, like finding termites had devoured the load-bearing beams of your house right down to sawdust. My first instinct was pure, white-hot rage. I wanted to storm downstairs, confront her, throw the folder in her face. But years spent navigating crises on volatile construction sites taught me one thing. Acting on raw emotion is usually disastrous. You assess the damage, you formulate a plan, you execute with precision. Panic is the enemy. My first call wasn't to Susan. It was to Frank Rossi. I met him at the Waffle House off I-75 before dawn the next day, the folder lying heavy between us on the sticky tabletop. Frank, a man whose loyalty I'd never doubted, read through the emails, his usual cheerful face hardening into a grim mask. He wasn't just my foreman. He knew the business inside out, handled much of the estimating and client relations. Pritchard? Frank spat the name like something foul. That slick bastard knew there was something off about him. He was asking way too many questions about our receivables last month, wanting details on the payment schedules for Apex and the Miller project. Susan said he was just helping her understand cash flow for her planning. Bullshit. He was casing the joint. Frank confirmed Pritchard had no legitimate reason to know that level of detail. He also mentioned seeing Susan and Pritchard having hushed lunches together several times recently, looking far too cozy for a purely professional relationship. Our next stop that same morning was David Lee's office. Lee, a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer Frank trusted implicitly, specialized in exactly this toxic brew. High-conflict divorce interwoven with complex business litigation. I laid the folder, the emails, Frank's corroborating observations on Lee's polished conference table. Lee absorbed it all, his expression becoming increasingly grave. "Bill," Lee said finally, leaning forward, his voice sharp with urgency, "this is critical. We're not just dealing with a marriage breakdown. We're dealing with what appears to be a premeditated conspiracy to defraud your business and manipulate the divorce settlement. Her plan to announce this on graduation day is pure psychological warfare, designed to cripple your response. We need to preempt her. We need to move decisively, protect the company now, and seize the legal initiative before she plays her hand." The next 10 days were a whirlwind of controlled, clandestine activity, orchestrated by Lee, while I somehow maintained a tense charade of normalcy at home. Frank and I became nocturnal creatures, working late in the locked office after the crews went home. We meticulously audited company accounts, tracing every dollar. We identified every point of potential access Susan or Pritchard might have. Under Lee's guidance, we executed a series of swift, precise countermeasures. Access lockdown. All administrative passwords, banking portals, QuickBooks, Procore project management software, client databases, supplier accounts were changed immediately. Multi-factor authentication was implemented everywhere possible. Susan's previous limited access, granted years ago for convenience, was revoked entirely. Financial fortification. We notified our business bank's fraud department, placing heightened alerts and requiring dual in-person authorization, mine and Frank's, for any significant transactions or changes to payment instructions. We contacted clients with major upcoming payments, discreetly updating payment protocols to secure, lockdown accounts. Legal shielding. Lee drafted documents placing key company assets, like the workshop property, into more secure legal structures where appropriate and permissible, shielding them from frivolous claims. He also prepared cease and desist letters addressed to Greg Pritchard, warning him against tortious interference with Henderson and Sons' business relationships, ready to be sent the moment the divorce was filed. Personal account freeze. Based on the clear evidence of intent to divert funds, Lee successfully obtained emergency ex parte court orders, temporarily freezing substantial withdrawals from the specific joint savings and investment accounts Susan had targeted in her emails with Pritchard. This wasn't a blanket freeze on all joint funds, just the ones demonstrably part of her exit strategy. Divorce filing, the masterstroke. Lee prepared a comprehensive divorce petition. It didn't just cite irreconcilable differences, it laid out, with supporting evidence attached as exhibits, the emails, financial transfer attempts blocked by the freeze. Counts of adultery with Greg Pritchard and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. He filed it electronically with the Fulton County Superior Court 2 days before Emily's graduation. It sat there, a legal time bomb, waiting only for official service. We had built our counter-fortress, quietly, efficiently. While Susan, oblivious, finalized her own attack plan, rehearsed her lines, presumably coordinated with Pritchard for the financial maneuvers to follow her announcement. She thought she was holding all the cards. ready to drop her bomb on an unsuspecting, emotionally vulnerable target. She had no idea I'd already disarmed her charges and laid a minefield of my own. So now, standing in that Kennesaw State parking lot, the Georgia sun beating down, listening to Susan deliver her calculated self-serving speech about needing to find herself and escape our stagnant life, I wasn't the crumbling wreck she anticipated. I was filled with a volatile mixture of profound sadness for the years wasted, white-hot anger at the depth of her betrayal, and a cold, grim satisfaction in knowing what was coming next. I let her finish her piece, the lines about growing apart, about deserving more, the subtle digs designed to paint me as the reason for her departure. Then I took a slow, deliberate breath, meeting her cool, expectant gaze with one of my own, equally steady. "Susan," I began, my voice quiet, almost conversational, but devoid of any warmth. "I appreciate you finally being direct. Though your chosen venue and timing, on Emily's graduation day, that's a masterclass in cruelty, even for you." She flinched, clearly thrown off balance by my lack of devastation, maybe sensing the trap springing. "I know the timing is difficult, Bill, but it felt like the only time—" "Oh, I think the timing was chosen very deliberately," I interrupted, my voice hardening. "Just like your financial planning wasn't just about managing your inheritance, was it? It was more about planning your exit strategy with your lover, Greg Pritchard." The color instantly drained from her face, replaced by a mottled flush of panic. Her eyes widened, darting around as if looking for an escape route. "What? What are you talking about? Greg is my financial advisor. How dare you accuse me? You're twisting things." "Am I?" I pressed on, relentless, ignoring the tremor starting in my own hands. "Am I twisting the emails where you two discussed the best way to undervalue Henderson and Sons? The emails where you talked about diverting payments from Apex? The emails where you planned this exact conversation for today, hoping I'd be too distraught to think clearly while you cleaned out the accounts?" Emily, who had started wandering back towards us with friends, stopped dead, her smile faltering as she sensed the raw, ugly tension. Susan was literally speechless now, sputtering, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Her carefully constructed composure shattered completely. "I know everything, Susan," I said, my voice dropping to a low, intense growl. "I know about the secret accounts. I know about the plan to cripple my business. I know you were meeting Pritchard at the Marriott Marquis while telling me you were at your book club. I know you intended to stand here today, play the victim, ruin my name, and walk away with as much of my life's work as you could possibly grab." I let the accusations hang there, heavy and damning. "And that's why," I delivered the final prepared blow, watching with grim satisfaction as pure terror washed over her face. "While you were rehearsing your little speech and coordinating with your boyfriend, I was taking some precautions. So when I locked down all company financial systems yesterday, revoked your access, changed every password, and instructed my bank to freeze significant activity on our key joint accounts this morning pending a legal review of potentially fraudulent transfers. I also had my lawyer, David Lee, a name you and Pritchard might want to get acquainted with, file our divorce petition. It was officially filed 2 days ago. It cites adultery with Greg Pritchard by name and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. I imagine the process server has been looking for you. Probably serve you at the office first thing Monday. Have a nice weekend figuring that out." The explosion was instantaneous and spectacular. Gone was the cool, calculating woman. Gone was the potential victim narrative. All that remained was raw, thwarted greed erupting into uncontrolled fury. She shrieked, a high-pitched, ragged sound that cut through the surrounding chatter, drawing every eye within 50 yards. "You did what?" The veins stood out on her neck, her face contorted into an ugly mask of rage. "You froze the accounts? You filed for divorce? Filed first? How dare you? How dare you do this behind my back? That's my money. The company is half mine. You can't cut me off. You conniving, underhanded bastard. I'll see you ruined. Her tirade dissolved into incoherent screaming and accusations directed at me, at Pritchard, who wasn't there, at the universe. She looked completely unhinged. Emily stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, horrified and bewildered by this monstrous transformation of her mother. Other families stared, mouths agape. Susan's perfectly planned, dignified exit had just detonated in her face, revealing the ugly truth of her motives to anyone within earshot. I felt a deep pang of sorrow, not for Susan, but for Emily, forced to witness this on her triumphant day. But mixed with the sadness was a cold, hard wave of relief. The truth was out. The conspiracy was stopped dead in its tracks. I had protected myself. I had protected my legacy. "We'll let the court sort out what belongs to whom, Susan," I said, my voice barely audible over her continued screaming, trying to project a calm I didn't fully feel. I turned to my pale, trembling daughter. Honey, I'm so profoundly sorry. This is not your fault. This is not how today was supposed to be. Can we please just go home? We'll talk. I promise. We'll talk." Susan, perhaps finally registering the shocked and pitying looks from onlookers, her face flushed crimson with humiliation and rage, spat one last venomous glare in my direction. "You'll pay for this, Bill. You have no idea what you've done." Then she spun around and practically fled, stumbling towards her car, leaving behind a battlefield of shattered expectations and public disgrace. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. The legal battle would be brutal. The emotional fallout would take years to process. But standing there in the wreckage, shielding my daughter, I knew one thing for sure. I had survived the initial blast. And Henderson and Sons, the business built brick by honest brick, was still standing. The foundation, though rocked, had held. The ensuing 18 months were, without exaggeration, the hardest of my life. The divorce became a scorched earth campaign waged by Susan and her high-priced legal team, likely funded by whatever money she had managed to squirrel away, or perhaps by Pritchard himself, who now had a vested interest in trying to discredit me and salvage something from the wreckage. They contested everything. They filed motions challenging the account freezes, claiming I'd acted illegally and maliciously. They tried to bury us in discovery requests demanding years of intricate financial records from Henderson and Sons, hoping to find some minor discrepancy, some accounting error they could inflate into evidence of wrongdoing on my part. Their strategy was clear. Bleed me dry financially and emotionally, force me into a disadvantageous settlement out of sheer exhaustion. The depositions were particularly brutal. Susan's lawyer, a slick Atlanta shark, grilled me for hours, trying to paint me as a neglectful husband, an incompetent businessman, someone whose success was solely due to Susan's alleged and wildly exaggerated contributions. Listening to Susan sit there, calmly perjuring herself, twisting shared memories into accusations, claiming she felt intimidated and controlled financially, while evidence showed her secretly opening multiple accounts and conspiring to drain existing ones. It tested every ounce of my self-control. David Lee was brilliant, objecting strategically, protecting me where possible, and then expertly cross-examining Susan, using her own emails and financial records to methodically dismantle her lies, exposing her contradictions under oath. But the process itself felt like being flayed alive, publicly. The business suffered. Rumors flew around Marietta. Some clients got nervous. We lost a couple of bids, perhaps because competitors exploited the perceived instability. perhaps because my own focus was inevitably fractured. Frank Rossi was superhuman during this period. He shielded me from unnecessary day-to-day problems, took on extra estimating work, reassured anxious clients, and kept the crews motivated and loyal. "Just keep your head up, Bill," he'd say gruffly, shoving a coffee at me during a late-night session reviewing legal documents. "We handle the builds. Lee handles the bullshit. We'll get through this." His unwavering belief was often the only thing keeping me going. My relationship with Emily required careful navigation. She was understandably devastated, caught between the parents she loved. Initially, she was angry at both of us, at her mother for the betrayal, at me for the public confrontation. We had many long, painful talks. I shared the core evidence with her, the emails outlining the financial plot, not to demonize her mother entirely, but to help her understand the depth of the planned betrayal, why I had to act so decisively. I never badmouthed Susan gratuitously, focusing instead on the broken trust and the attack on the business that provided for all of us. It was a slow process, but seeing the concrete evidence and witnessing her mother's increasingly bitter and grasping behavior during the divorce, Emily gradually came to understand the painful truth. Our relationship, though scarred, began to heal, rebuilt on a foundation of difficult honesty. She started spending more time helping me at the office after her classes, learning the ropes, a quiet gesture of solidarity that meant the world to me. The legal battle culminated not in a dramatic trial, but in a series of intense, multi-day mediation sessions ordered by the judge. Susan's lawyers knew their case regarding the business fraud was weak, especially after our forensic accountant delivered a devastating report tracing Susan's financial maneuvers and Pritchard's involvement. Their focus shifted entirely to maximizing her share of the remaining marital assets and minimizing her liability. David Lee stood firm, refusing to concede on the core issues. The business was predominantly mine, and Susan's financial misconduct needed to be fully accounted for in the settlement. Finally, facing the prospect of the judge likely siding heavily with me based on the evidence, Susan agreed to a settlement. It wasn't the pittance I might have wished for in my angriest moments, but it was fundamentally fair and protected my life's work. The final divorce decree laid it all out in stark legalese. Henderson and Sons Construction, affirmed as my primary separate property, with Susan receiving no ownership stake or future claim. Marital assets, divided equitably, but only after the full amount Susan had secretly transferred or attempted to transfer, $40,000 plus identified by the accountant, was credited against her share. Real estate. I retained the family home, buying out her small remaining equity share, and the workshop property. Legal fees. Due to her documented financial misconduct and prolonging the litigation unnecessarily, Susan was ordered to contribute significantly towards my substantial legal fees. Alimony. Denied. Signing those final papers felt like closing the door on a burning building. The fire was out, but the structure was smoke-damaged, scarred. There was no elation, just a profound, bone-deep weariness and the quiet relief of survival. What became of Susan? She left Marietta shortly after the divorce was finalized. Rumors filter back occasionally, working a less glamorous job in another state, her relationship with Pritchard having predictably imploded once the money disappeared. Her reputation locally was ruined. Whether she learned anything, felt any real remorse, I wouldn't know. Frankly, I stopped caring. Her chapter was closed. Life now is about rebuilding, professionally and personally. Henderson and Sons is stable, arguably stronger, leaner, with tighter controls in place. Frank is officially my partner, his loyalty formalized. Emily, now working in Atlanta, is thriving. Our relationship is good, maybe even deeper now, forged in the fires of that shared crisis. She understands the business, respects the work, and sees me not just as dad, but as a survivor. The workshop is my sanctuary again. The smell of cedar and oak, the familiar whine of the table saw, the satisfaction of a perfectly executed dovetail joint. These things are real, tangible, honest. They don't lie. They don't conspire. The betrayal left an indelible mark, a permanent layer of caution I'll likely carry forever. Trust, once shattered so completely, is damn hard to glue back together. But standing here, watching the sparks fly from the grinder, feeling the solid weight of the tools in my hands, I know I'm okay. More than okay. I faced down the demolition crew that tried to level my life. I protected what mattered. I learned that the strongest foundations aren't just built with concrete and steel, but with resilience, vigilance, and the unwavering conviction to fight for what's rightfully yours. The work continues. The building goes on. And Henderson & Sons, like its owner, endures.